government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
We're back with Doc Chambers. We've had him on the show before, but he was kind enough to give us some time and tell us what's going on the ground in Kerrville. Doc, I've spent some time down there myself. Had a son go to the military academy prep school there at the university. I forgot the name of it, but tell us what's going on the ground there.
Roger that. So right now we're search and rescue is continuing for any existing children from specifically over a little bit west of here in Hunt, but also there's other people in the periphery that we just haven't got to. And I'm watching, game wardens. I'm not stopping them, but they're pulling boats out. It looks like they went till about 7 this morning on the rivers, but there's other elements. They're rotating out with Texas Military Department, the Zodiacs with those guys. Those are little rubber rigid inflatable boats. So right now we are in Kerrville, which is one of the center points of this thing, but there's more of a concern right now with the watershed effect and also the weather, the way it played a role last night. What happened in the middle of the night is we had a big dump of rain over east of here on Lake Travis and Marble Falls. So those two lakes were really low before, so they should be able to hold what they've got and fill back up. There were a lot of docks sitting on dry land at that time, so we're watching that. Not getting any more reports of children being found from the Camp Mystic resort or campground. So we'll be going there after this, and we'll be able to report that as well. So be on the lookout on on our X page is really where we're putting the information out. But right now it's just been a long night, but more just search and rescue over the evening hours, and it kind of makes it a little easier for some of the guys with regard to that, because they can use the thermals and be able to see people out there at night. So sometimes those stand out. So that was a positive, but I do not have any reports of anybody being picked up.
So our good friend Michael Yan is saying there may have been some water infrastructure removed around these areas. Do you know anything about that?
Water infrastructure, you mean
as in infrastructure is trying to control the water flow that may have impacted this? I don't have any information on that. I'm very much at the tactical level right now in the dirt, so to speak. We will be assessing that. I do have a team of analyst type folks that are lending their expertise. We'll be able to report that, but I'll ask them the question. We'll find that out. So how can people help the efforts on the ground and what you're doing and everybody else?
Good copy. Yeah. So, the Remnant Ministry TX.org is our organization. This is something that we started, a few years back, counter human trafficking team, but also humanitarian response. We were in North Carolina and fires in North Texas. So the Remnant Ministry TX.org is the way that people can donate. It's right now, it's so pinpoint that bringing more people out here is not going to be, say, bring us stock trailers for cattle, we'll have 200 of them here in an hour. So we don't want to block up the humanitarian side of this. The animal stuff will come, but we're just still such in the early phase. So I'm not the command and control on that. That's the EOC's Emergency Operations Centers out of Kerrville, Kerr County. So those folks are doing a great job. Texas Military Department is out here, and so is the Texas Department of Emergency Management, doing a pretty good job.
So you think you're getting enough support from the state at this point in what's happening?
Yeah, and typically in these things, you're going to see the citizens are going to just rise up, and they did. Texas rose, and that's a great thing. Just like North Carolina, the Appalachian folks did the same thing. I think they had a harder response. It was so remote out there. This is so accessible by highway that it won't be the same response. But however, it is kind of a microcosm of the same situation out there with Hurricane Helene, is just from experience of me being a lot of these things.
Yeah, that river runs right through Kerrville. I remember that well.
Yes, anyway. those riverbacks. We just drove over the bridge where the park there is not submerged right now, but it was yesterday.
Anything else you want to get out, Doc?
No, sir. I just say, anybody in these further downstream from this stuff, I think we still have the potential for crests. Matter of fact, the crest at San Saba just went by us, and that was at approximately 30-something feet crest. So that means, from the river's bottom to the top. So it did crest pretty high about an hour ago, but so far no reports of anything because they did evacuate and they did a good job.
Dr. P. Chambers, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate your time, man. Take care.
Roger that, brother.
All right.
You had a strategic call with Zelensky the other day. What strategy did you
I thought it was a good call. He's being hit very hard, as I said he would. He's being hit very hard, and I was very disappointed with my call with President Putin. I was very disappointed. Say it.
Why not help Ukraine the same way you help Israel?
I am helping Ukraine. I'm helping it a lot, and it's a war that should have never happened. It's a war that should have never started. If I were president, if the election weren't rigged, and it was rigged so badly, and that's come out. Read Miranda Devine in the New York Post today. The election was totally rigged, and if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have a war with Russia right now, and you wouldn't have had inflation, and you wouldn't have had the horrible Afghanistan the way they left. Not that they left. We would have been out before them, but the way they left. I think the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. You wouldn't have had the October horror show with Israel and Hamas. You wouldn't have had any of it. You wouldn't have had the recent showdown with Iran. You wouldn't have had any of it. And you wouldn't have had inflation.
So you said you had Elon Musk starting a third party.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Glad to have you today. I hope you had a great July 4th weekend. I know I did. Took a little time to hang with the family and do that important stuff. Saw a great band out of Boston, Jake, Swamp, and the Pine. Got a really cool t-shirt. So if you love just cool music, check them out. Really enjoyed them in a recent concert in the area. Want to say hello to the crew. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Love the engagement. Stay with us. Keep it going, and love all the regulars. Thank you for the comments. Check out whatfinger.com. They are a great news aggregator. They're a partner of ours. They post a lot of our content, and we love them. The theme of today is disclosure. We're going to talk about a lot. The Georgia corruption is stinking so bad that it's bubbling to the top through the matrix. The matrix is cracking. I wrote an article about that. We'll discuss that, but the Epstein disclosures or non-disclosures, I mean, that's really interesting. And disclosures on the wars. The wars, we're in a fight right now to stop the wars and save humanity. I mean, that's essentially where we're at. We have the warmongers on one side and the peace-loving humans on the other. And I would even add peace-loving Christians on the other side who want to end these wars, and we need to end them. And that's one of our main purposes here at CDM, is to end these wars and stop the killing on both sides of every war and get to some kind of peace so humanity can grow and you can remove this war cancer that's been obviously infected the United States for some time. Big show today. A few minutes, I'm going to have Rob Cunningham on to talk XRP. There's a lot of breaking stuff in crypto that I want to get out there. You need to know. And then if we have time, we're going to talk to Dr. Jake Tapper later in the show on some of the disclosures that are coming out. Also, I have a great interview with young female member of the Iranian resistance. We may not get to that today. We'll see. Second hour, we got John Gordon, who ran for Attorney General in Georgia. He is the guy who runs The Truth with John Gordon, really respected, highly credible person. And we're going to have him on in the second hour, but so much to go through. So stay with us. You know what? I'll just do the mission brief real quick while we're at it. Today is July 7th. I'm L Todd Wood, your host. This is your mission brief. We're going to be with Rob Cunningham and John Gordon this morning, which we talked about. But Donald Trump is the only guy who can stop the Ukraine war. I want to dig into that later in the show, because Trump is the one who can shut it down immediately by pulling weapons. And that needs to happen. The regime there is very evil, and we're going to continue outing that and talking about it. Israel attacks Yemen, calls up Orthodox religious Jews into the armed forces, causing a big stink in Israel. Musk and the America Party, we'll talk about that. No Epstein evidence. I don't think anyone believes that. Maybe there's not any now because it's all been destroyed, but nobody believes that. And the Georgia corruption continues. This is going to be a theme this week. We've got to get this out there. Georgia is critical to 26, and we have to solve this issue, and we will. So with that, stay with me. We'll be right back after the break. Rob Cunningham is going to come in, and we're going to talk crypto because there's a lot going on there. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down, and even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have a card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, you know, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. You know, we think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay. There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this, and really it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that you know, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker, stealing all the applicants.
So, Rob, I'm hearing XRP is going to be a bank.
Yes, sir.
What is happening in crypto, my friend?
Well, the exact opposite of what's happened since 1913. It's we're going from CeFi, or centralized finance, to DeFi, and they're just completely opposite. You know, Todd, there is a methodology of credit and lending that can be fair and honest. It's based on sound money. And then there can be a system that's based on deception and counterfeit money, which they call a dollar, which is really a debt instrument. It can be centralized, and it can be leveraged as an invisible middleman or a third party in every single transaction between two people or two entities that's supposed to be designed for, a swap between me and you. Little do we know, there's a taxer and a regulator and an inflator and a debaser and a diverter and a cheater, and and all of these people are integrated into this banking cartel system that's based on funny money. And so, distributed ledger technology and crypto basically guts out all these invisible third parties so that we can have honest money and honest banking. And that's really what this is all about.
So does Trump get this? He's obviously pro crypto. The SEC is making some really good moves to enable, I think, this new generation of finance. But does Trump really get what you're talking about?
Yes, sir. I think there's politics, there's optics, and there's strategy. Okay. So on February the 3rd of 2017, President Trump signed an executive order with 7 core principles that were necessary to revamp the American monetary system. Okay. Those 7 core principles led to a 225-page report signed by the Treasury in 2018 that looks exactly like what's playing out today. So, for people to think that he just accidentally or randomly pulled 7 core data points onto an executive order that generated a report by the, Steve Mnuchin that created, the distributed ledger technology and the blockchain system that we're seeing installed around the world. If people think that all happened coincidentally and Trump just got lucky because he put 7 things down on an executive order like 10 days after he became president the first time.
Yeah.
We're seeing what's happening today. God, Trump sure is lucky, or he probably knew what was going on.
So I have a question. Mnuchin, I think even Trump said this, that he was a globalist. I mean, he's got all these people, because there's people who are trying to stop this, but a lot of them seem to be playing along, and then they are, and then they aren't. I mean, what is the game that's going on behind the scenes with some of these people that are just not maybe on our team completely?
Todd, I think that's a great question, and I think it's one that's philosophically we all have to answer. We have all been, we've all been asleep, and then we were semi-awake, and then we went to awake. We've all worked for companies that were horrible, right? And then we left. We went to a better company. We've all grown and matured. We all go through this process of lifting the scales from our eyes, and I didn't know the world that I was born into of trust and tradition and how rigged and corrupt it was. And so we have to start from that basis point. Okay. We have to start from the fact that just because someone was, in Club A doesn't mean they are a Club A person. It just means they were. And so, I mean, how many of us in the last 5 years have learned how evil this world really is? Did we really have
so true?
I mean, think about it. The world is in a different place than it was 5 years ago. Okay, so
we're living in historic times. That's an understatement.
We're living in historic times, and so those that may be reorganizing the monetary system to make it a level playing field, to make it fair and open and honest and transparent and accountable. There's no reason in the world they can't get to the point where, I made enough money. This system is rigged. My grandkids deserve better. Let me get my ass in gear and start fixing things. They could have been a globalist 10 years ago, but now today they're like, I've turned a new leaf.
That's fantastic insight, actually, because there's a whole nother layer to this, which we've talked about, but maybe our audience may not get. It's the wars. Right. All of these wars have been enabled by this financial system. And I was listening to Tucker Carlson last night, and you and I, were Gulf War I guys.
Yeah.
And, I remember being over there thinking I'm doing the right thing. Right. But listen to the historian, I think Scott, I forget his last, Scott Horton, yesterday, journalist, historian, excuse me. He's saying, all of that was for another reason. And that is for me, just a rude awakening, man. I mean, I knew it, but to hear it, I'm learning things today that I didn't know, and to me, that's astounding. Today, I'm 61,
Right. Todd, I'm 63, brother. I'm right there with you. And look at how it makes, though, the law book resonate like we never were taught it. Like we live in this world, but not of it. Money,
totally true.
The love of money, the worship of money is the root of all evil. Well, and if there's an malevolent or evil force in this world that's here to divide, deceive, devour, and destroy, wouldn't it maybe manifest itself as a military industrial complex?
Yeah.
That not only they profit from for us killing each other with a false pretense, weapons of mass destruction, and then everybody gets rich while they kill a vast number of younger people in a noble cause looking for weapons of mass destruction. And oh, darn, we just couldn't find those. Sorry about all those lives that got lost. And
I think it's a human sacrifice, Rob. I think this has a religious, tone to it.
A negative, dark religion.
Yeah, that's
dark
my point.
Religion. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think that maybe that's what Tucker was getting at earlier when he was talking about there's some really dark things here that I wouldn't want to tell my children. But anyway, I'm just astounded. I keep learning, and I think everybody needs to get on this train and really open your eyes and learn, because that's what we're seeing now. The awakening, as you talk about, is what's going to save humanity, right? Because without it, it can't happen.
1,000% correct. And, we all I wish I could get everybody to answer one question. And honestly, do we live truly on this vast earth in a world that's $37 trillion in debt? Or might we live in a world with $175 trillion of abundance, and they've just been lying to us the whole time?
Yeah.
They've been hoarding, they've been stealing, they've been taxing, they've been doing land grabs, they've been saying that's off limits. Oh, 80% of the land in America is public. You can't go there. That's a park. Or the oil, the patents, the technologies, the rare earth minerals, it's all been siphoned through this Rothschild wealth extraction system. And we know that's all normal because we read it in a Rothschild textbook taught to us by a unionized school teacher that works for the Rothschild Corporation known as the United States of America, Inc. And until we break this glass ceiling and break this maritime law, crown corporation, global structure, and get back to sovereignty, where we are a sovereign, independent, free nation, where we get to self-govern instead of Klaus Schwab governing us, when that is the awakening. That is what's happening right now, Todd.
Well, and you talk about the UK. I mean, we fought a war to get away from that, and they've unfortunately recaptured us in many ways over the last 100 years.
Well, yes, but I want people to study their history. If they will check me on this, call me a name, laugh right now, but check me on this. There's a city of London that's a 1 square mile area on the Thames River that is a entity and a nation sovereign unto itself. It has its own flag, its own borders, its own government, its own judges and court system. The Queen and the King and the people in the United Kingdom cannot just willy-nilly walk into the city of London. So that is where central banking is housed. That is where the monetary system that we've been suppressed under is domiciled. So there's 3 of those entities like that on planet Earth, Todd. It's the City of London. It's the Vatican City. It's not part of Rome. It's not part of Italy. It's its own supra-sovereign territory that makes its own laws and rules, and it's its own thing. And the third one is called the District of Columbia.
I was down there recently, and something I noticed, which I've never noticed before, and I used to work there all the time. I still do, not as much, was the DC flag was everywhere. And I was like, what the heck? I mean, it was like they were promoting this this country. They weren't promoting the US, they were promoting DC. And I ended up researching the flag, and guess what's on it? A British redcoat, almost like lording over the country. And I was like, wow. That's like up in your grill, dude. You know,
and a yellow braid all the way around the flag. And if people don't understand the importance of flags in history, why do we put a flag on the moon? Yeah. Why do flags matter? Who holds custody to the flag? The flag is the symbol of territorial ownership and national sovereignty. But an American flag with gold fringe around it is Admiralty law.
Yes.
It means it's part of the Crown Corporation, and the Crown's British Accreditation Registry Admiralty laws apply to that flag with the yellow fringe all the way around it. Well, guess what happened on July 4th? President Trump came and signed his one big beautiful bill and sat down, and the flags all over the place and all behind him and Melania had no yellow fringe.
Interesting. It really is fascinating, man. I mean, the scales keep falling off, but I want to go back. I'm going to listen to that Tucker interview again. It's 3 hours long with Scott Horton, but really interesting. The why we got into the Middle East, all the way back to kicking out Mossadegh. It was for the UK. It was for the UK wanted the oil in Iran, and it's just, and all of that is coming due to chickens are coming home today. So I'm going to take a quick break. Rob, stay with me. We'll be right back.
Yes, sir.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm here with Rob Cunningham, financial guru, especially on everything crypto. Rob, what's going on in that world? I mean, there's a bank coming, right?
Yeah, there is a bank coming. There'll be a custody bank. What we're seeing, Todd, is the first time ever in the history of the United States we have legislation passed in the one big beautiful bill. The Congress has announced July 14th is Crypto Week. Okay, they have the Stable Coin Act, the Stable Genius Act that will be coming into law here very shortly. You have the Market Structure Act that will be signed into law. These two things plus the one big beautiful bill, these three things put together will take away every single excuse of every corporation in America and hence the world as to why they for not adopting cryptocurrency, digital ledger technology, blockchain, and people will either, Todd, in the next 6 months, come up with a plan and begin to adopt this new distributed ledger technology, monetary, sound money thesis, or they'll cease to exist.
Well, that's pretty blunt. But so I don't have to worry about going to dinner and my credit card being declined, or I don't have to worry about if the check doesn't clear in my account. There's a $40 fee, or the annual account review fee that comes in that it just hits your account. All that goes away.
Todd, what people need to understand is the way in which the old banking system worked was on money that melted like an ice cube, called inflation. Okay, loans or usury interest and fees. That was it. Okay. Yeah. Distributed ledger technology lets you move $30 million from point to point for a penny in 3 seconds. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't move the 30 million if you don't have the 30 million. And so you can't overdraft something you ain't got because the transaction won't go through.
Right.
There, those fees go away. And so, you can't just have a credit card if you don't have a proper limit. You can't go put a Mercedes-Benz on a credit card. It's going to decline you, but it's not going to decline you because of social credit scoring. It's going to be because you ain't got the money.
Well, there's so much fraud in the system. I mean, and I know the main reason a lot of these banks, decline your credit card at dinner when you're with a client or whatever is because of the fraud. If you're using it a lot and you're in Hungary, I get that, but that is their problem, right? It's not my problem. I mean, so does that deal with that issue?
It is this atomic settlement, point to point, know your customer, end to end, immediate across this ledger transaction from knowing your customer to verifying assets to transferring from point to point to ledgering it to settling it and it being done forever in 3 to 5 seconds is the modus operandi that is the standard available to every entity. So those that want to try to hang on to the blockbuster model when 3 years into Netflix, may attempt to do that. They may attempt to hang on for dear life and they don't know how to innovate. And there will be customers that will go, well, I don't know any better. They might go eat at that shop.
Right.
But the end of the day, I think there was a poll that came out among millennials and Gen Zs that said, as soon as blockchain and crypto and digital wallets become available, 89% of them plan to leave the Wells Fargos, the Chases, and the Bank of Americas.
I sure would. Yeah, I hate it. Yeah.
Like that. They're gone. So as to my previous comment, Todd, you're going to get with the program and innovate and be creative and add value to customers instead of extracting fees and interest and fractional reserve lending from customers. Instead of this being a wealth the system, Todd, our whole life is called this friction. Okay. The fees, the fat, the interest, the overdraft charges, all of this kind of stuff is friction. And distributed ledger technology and blockchain eliminates all of that friction. So could you do me a favor? Could you share my screen real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I want to share something with you and your audience and give them a little bit of a homework assignment I think they might like. This is something that will pretty much blow your mind. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Folks, if you'll go to this website on your own, called usdebtclock.org. And take a look at, just spend some time and looking at what this is, who is behind it, why does it exist, what are all these numbers, how is this updating itself in real life. I want you to spend some time looking at this, but my real purpose of showing you this is up here in the upper right hand corner. You'll see this thing that says secret window, and when you click on it, there's always some messaging that takes place. And this was just put up a couple of days ago, and it talks about the Fed banking cartel and a new declaration by we the people of getting free from the money laundering and racketeering, debt and interest exchange, has no actual reserves, because the fraudulent nature of this banking enterprise is what has enslaved us in debt. So if you will click now, three things: go to US Debt Clock, click on the secret window, and then come down here and click on this thing where it says free book. And that is a PDF of about 30 of these slides that you're looking at, the declaration by we the people. And spend some time. Let me see if I can't open this up for you. Here it comes. So this is the greatest homework assignment. You can become a master historian, a money guru, and understand how this world has been stitched together by all of these different terms, all of these different philosophies about what is money, where did it come from, who engineered the current system that we have. It'll take you through history and show you how we got to a non-American Federal Reserve system that's not federal, and there are no reserves. And if you just go through this and spend some time with an open mind and a curious heart, you will be blown away at how did the US dollar that used to have a dollar purchasing power can now only buy 2 or 3 cents. Yeah. How did $37 trillion happen? Who do we owe the $37 trillion to? And how do we get rid of this system that is used to fund the military industrial complex and the medical industrial complex and the media industrial complex and all the different systems of this world that tell us if we don't just groupthink and walk like sheep and behave the way our betters tell us that we have to behave, then we're conspiracy theorists, or we're a domestic terrorist, or we just need to get with the program and go back to asking for permission slips to get a haircut or go fishing or drive a car. And if you will spend some time, this is completely free. No one has to give an email address, pay a nickel, anything. Just go to usdebtclock.org, click on that secret window, click on the free book, and spend some time reading this. You can, if you think it's stupid and crazy, have a beer and go watch Netflix.
Yeah.
But if you really want to know what's going on and you're looking for a way to make sense of all the craziness in our world, this is a good place to start.
Once you get there, it really does make sense. I mean, it just clicks. Everything makes sense.
Follow the money. This is the follow the money tutorial from the time they hung Jesus on the cross to today.
Yeah.
This is a follow the money tutorial, and everything can be reverse engineered. Every decision, every stupid policy, every BLM, every George Floyd, every Antifa, every World War, the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, everything can be answered if you'll trace back and follow the money.
Well, Jamie Dimon told us a few years ago that, I'm richer than you are, so shut up. So, I mean, I still think about that, man. I mean, that was like in your grill if there was anything.
Well, Todd, and to that point, the Federal Reserve in the United States of America has 10 member banks. And guess which one has 10% ownership in the Federal Reserve System? Jamie Dimon and Chase Manhattan.
Yeah.
So J.P. Morgan Chase, Mr. Morgan, was one of the gentlemen that flew down to Jekyll Island, Georgia, to create the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, that was after the House of Morgan, saved the United States.
Right.
Yeah, and you fascinating history. You can read that book, The House of Morgan. It's just really eye opening. But you can go down to Wall Street and see the old bank building on the corner there with the bullet holes in the facade where they had the riots, and I mean it's all there.
Right.
The history is there. What else about this new financial system? You sent me a whole list of things talking about, well, I guess the big part is all of this has already been put in place, right? And has been for years with Trump in the first administration, correct?
100%. 100%. This infrastructure, think of it as a protocol. Think of it as the way in which countries can interoperate with one another freely and fairly without bullets and bombs. Okay. What if we are all free? Let Brazil be Brazil and Japan be Japan, America be America, and Qatar be Qatar. Okay. And if we want to interoperate and trade any kind of services with them and it's lawful, let us do it. If we don't, we don't. But instead of having this central plan, top down, World Economic Forum, one size fits all world with these dominion owners of the world monetary system, treating us like prisoners on a prison planet, how about we turn all of that upside down and give us our sovereignty back and let us consent and contract with anybody we want to, as long as we're not breaking the law. That's what unalienable rights is all about. That's what America's birth certificate, the Declaration of Independence, it was a love letter to God. It was like, God, we understand where all our rights come from. We understand how we got here. We understand that, we have unalienable inherited rights to life, liberty, and property. That was originally what it said, was life, liberty, and property. And they edited it to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because, the pursuit of happiness can include starting a family, starting a business, building a house, becoming an artist, becoming a musician, whatever those types of things. So the pursuit of happiness was a little bit broader than property. But if I have $100 in my account, there should be no lien on that $100. If I earn $100, there should be no tax or lien or claim on my $100. If I want to give my daughter an inheritance of $100,000, there should be no lien on that $100,000. That's what unalienable rights mean. They're mine. They're not Gary Gensler's. They're not George Bush's. They're not Donald Trump's. They're not anybody. They're mine. And
what was it in the big beautiful bill that opened up some of these, I guess, avenues for reimagining the financial system?
Well, think about this. The burden of taxation is being shifted radically off of our shoulders and onto the other nations that want to do business in America. So if you want to stock the shelves at Costco, are you going to require all the customers to pay all those fees, or should you charge the suppliers of the materials that put the stuff on the Costco shelves? So what they had done was not only taxed us for the customers putting their things on the shelf, then we would go and buy them and check out and we get to pay another tax. Right? I mean, look at, we started a war because of a 3% tax over tea and no representation. And now we want to go from 40% to 30%. It's nuts how far we let this system get away from us. But it was frogs in a pan. They slowly turned the temperature up and boiled us in the pot.
Yeah, we were born in the pot, and it was already
born in the pot.
Already lukewarm.
Yeah, it was lukewarm, and we didn't feel it. We just knew something wasn't right, but it got hotter and hotter. And so, if people would understand that the big, bold, beautiful bill is going to do two things, it's going to, number one, it's going to cut a lot of taxes, and sooner or later, it's not going to be fair to have some people tax-free and others not tax-free. So ultimately, we're going to need to get rid of the taxes altogether. But what if it was to break this? What if we just couldn't reconcile all this funny money and we can't pay the interest on 37 trillion? And he's going to add 7 trillion more. And we just can't figure out a way to pay back the Rothschilds. I sure would hate to see them go bankrupt. Wouldn't you, Todd?
Yeah.
Maybe the big, beautiful bill frees us of taxes and bankrupts the assholes.
Maybe. We will see.
And again, if we go back to having a treasury with sound debt and sound money and actual treasuries, think of it this way, Todd. All of these new financial institutions and conglomerates, let's say we go from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 people with stable coins.
Mm-hmm.
A stable coin has to be backed by a tier 1 asset, like a U.S. Treasury bond. Well, guess what? What happens when we have 10,000 customers for the next treasury auction? Pretty liquid market, isn't it?
Totally.
And it takes away the political power of our adversaries to threaten to dump treasuries or not buy our treasuries or manipulate our credit markets because we didn't go to war or sign some treaty with them.
You know, I maybe I'll have to play that, but soon. But that old meme video that came out a few years ago, actually back during the QE, was like quantitative easing explained. You know, it's got the little bobbleheads. You know, talking about where do they buy the treasuries? Well, they buy them from the Goldman Sachs. You know,
right?
Who makes the market? Well, the Goldman Sachs. You know?
A year ago, the president of El Salvador did that very thing. He did a beautiful 3-minute talk about, well, who buys where the treasuries come from and who creates it and who buys it. And it's this circular, ridiculous, they call it quantitative easing, and it's, you just print money out of thin air, and one person prints it, another person buys it, and voila, we pay interest on something they created out of thin air.
Yeah, and I am going to play that when I have a minute, but it's like, so they buy the treasuries from the Treasury, right? No, they buy them from the Goldman Sachs. It's that, I don't know who did that, but I mean, that's hilarious. I'm going to take one more break, and I want to talk Georgia when we get back. Is that cool with you?
Yes, sir.
All right, be right back. The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe 2 transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
You know, these food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah.
Where you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm here with Rob Cunningham. Rob, we got some problems in Georgia. I mean, the stink is just getting too much, in my opinion. I mean, the bullshit is just getting too high. What say you about what's going down in the great state of Georgia?
Well, Todd, yeah, I watched John Gordon a little bit yesterday, and he is as passionate. He said he spent a long time staying quiet, but he looked at everything, and the buck stops at the desk of the chairman.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure.
And the chairman is a marionette. There are strings attached to the chairman.
For sure.
And there's no way any logical or rational human being can think that McCoon's just out there saying what he's saying because it's just the right thing to do or say. There's an agenda, there's a power structure, there are hidden hands, and we have been lied to the point where John and myself and you and every common sense, decent person in Georgia is sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, just for our audience sake, the Georgia convention was tyrannically run. I mean, it's supposed to be the main supreme body of the Georgia Republican Party. When it's in session, it is the highest authority, and people were prevented from due process, from getting to the microphones to present motions, physically prevented. And there was a lot of other stuff that went on. But then the family that was involved in doing a lot of that preventing, their business was seized by the feds. It looks like a Ponzi scheme. That's what we're saying. We don't know. But it's just, and nobody is talking about it except us. I mean, Fox News had Katie Frost on, I think 2 days ago, as an analyst, you know, and so it's bizarre, man. And it's getting to the point where, as you say, scales falling off the eyes. I think people in Georgia are finally seeing what's going on.
Yeah, and I think to think that Georgia is supposedly this bold conservative state with a red Senate and a red House and a red governor and a red Secretary of State, it sure as hell acts like a blue state and a out of control chaos state to me.
Yeah.
And you can put a lipstick on a pig, you know, but sooner or later that lipstick's going to come off, you know, because they're eating in the slop, and the lipstick goes away. And I think if you look at the malfeasance, if you look at the voter corruption, if you look at one of the 5 counties that was responsible primarily for what happened in 2020, right? Ground zero is our beautiful big state of Georgia. And, you know, if I was to put an analogy on this, Todd, I'd say that, you know, the Ouroboros, you've seen the picture of the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
And there's no honor among whores. So
yeah.
I think what's happening is the walls are closing in on these corrupt people. And I've heard rumors, and again, it's just a rumor, but, you know, maybe Raffensperger had something to do with the Frost Bank collapse and whistleblowing, and I'll rat you out if you save my butt. And all of a sudden, when people start getting pressed, they don't care about anybody but themselves, and they start turning on each other. And so if that's what's happening, if there's any kind of vice grip of justice that's being squeezed on these bad folks, and we're seeing this like we've never seen it before, you know, maybe maybe we're at the end. I hope.
I hope it's the beginning of the end, at least. You know, I still, it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that, you know, they set up Kemp and they set up DeSantis. And I think both of those states were made to look red and conservative for the base so that they would feel fine. And they were trying to tee up a competitor to Trump. I think that's what happened. DeSantis didn't work. Kemp, you know, destroyed himself going to Davos and all that, ignoring human trafficking at the Atlanta airport.
Right.
So I think that obviously those didn't work. So now they're just reverting to, okay, let's make them blue as we set them up to be. Yeah. Maybe something like that is going on but this is a crack in the matrix. I really think this seizure 100%. is an eye opener.
100%. And look at what just an application of blockchain and transparency and accountability, and to be able to see the sonogram and watch the blood flow and see where the money goes. How does George Soros have 50, or any NGO have 55,000 NGOs where they can operate in secrecy and pour money and fund all of these little arms and legs and feet and fingers of the beast system in privacy, when there is no way to do these secret NGOs and print money out of a keyboard entry and funnel it in secrecy through the IRS, and the media doesn't talk about it, and we don't have access to the data. And I mean, look at what Doge did.
Yeah.
Look at what you have, an Elon Musk and a president of the United States and a treasurer that's willing and looking at moving our treasury, which is sovereign. It's not an NGO, and moving our treasury on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So we can keep an eye on government. We can keep an eye on the monetary supply, and we can keep an eye on our government at the commissioner level, the school board level, the county, city, state, federal level. These hidden, invisible factories of influence pumped with fake money is the reason our world has gotten as sick and fat and divided and against one another and ignorant. I mean, we're going from dark to light, Todd. This is the beginning of going from dark to light.
I hope you're right. I think you're right. Rob, thank you very much, man. Always love your insight, and have you back shortly. But as things develop, let me know if anything goes on, and we'll get you back in the crypto world.
Next week will be the crypto week we've never seen before. So look
Why
out.
is that?
Well, on July 14th, you have the FedWire system switches over, a one-day cutover for 11,000 member banks that have to be ISO 20022 compliant on the 14th, which is a week from today. And there is no reverse look back. There's no reconciliation. The entire old way of money transmission and messaging that takes place from all the different antiquated system, it's a hard cut over. 11,000 member banks, and it's trillions of dollars have to be in 100% compliance with ISO distributed ledger technology, money movement, messaging protocol.
Wow. Okay, we'll look for that. Maybe we'll have you back after that. Thank you very much, Rob. Take care.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the wellness company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw that in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker stealing all the applicants.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed Rob Cunningham. Really good insight into the crypto world. I just want to highlight something real quick. Nucleo Boost. Go to cdmnutrition.com. Check it out. It is everything you need at the cellular level, and it has the bioallo to deliver it into your cells through the cellular wall. I didn't know. I thought that was just a talking point, but I looked it up. It's actually true. So check out the Nucleo Boost, and it's what gives us the stamina every day to go 24/7 that we do here, and that's at cdmnutrition.com. To continue on a theme of Georgia, we're on this like stink on you know what, and I want to bring in a guy who really has studied everything going on in the great state of Georgia and had some really good insights this week, and that's our good friend John Gordon. John, thanks for coming on, my friend. Love it.
My pleasure. Nice to see you, Todd.
You had some things to say this week, so can you give us a recap?
Well, I've talked to a lot of people, and I've given a lot of thought to what happened in Dalton, Georgia, at the state convention for the Georgia Republican Party, and it was did not sit well with me in the moment. And since the convention, and I've been able to speak to people and confirm what was rumored to have happened, I am thoroughly disgusted. And as I've referred to the Georgia GOP, I believe that it is a entity that is fraught with dysfunction. And I am calling for the resignation of the chair and select members of the executive committee who participated in dirty politics that served to disenfranchise hundreds, if not thousands, of people who came to Dalton on their own dime to participate in what they thought would be an open convention. And it turned out to be a rigged convention. It was fake. It was phony. It was contrived. And I think it's disgusting. I mean, I think they should go join the Democratic Party. I think they'd be very comfortable there.
Well, that they may be, they be maybe wolves in sheep's clothing. So, I talked about the prevention of the microphones, but there were other issues. There were issues in the nominating committee meetings where people were calling, the cross-side nominees, to lack of a better term, did you get spanked by your mother, and all this kind of stuff that went down. What else besides just the microphone issue really got you?
Well, the fact that they appointed a chairman of the convention that did not know, evidently, Robert's Rules of Order. And if they did know Robert's Rules of Order, then it was an intentional decision not to follow Robert's rules, in spite of the fact that the convention rules call for following Robert's Rules of Order. And I've become thoroughly disenchanted with Josh Buffoon, the chairman of the party. And I'm not picking sides between he and David Cross. I know David. I like David. I'm not endorsing him for any office. Right. I was neutral on the going into the convention. I'm very anti-Buffoon at this point. That what he and his cronies did is just flat out wrong. It is so sophomoric. It is laughable. And instead of saying, "Oh well, maybe we went too far," they doubled down on it. And Brant Frost V said, "Well, I'm not going to apologize for being better at politics than they are." But what he's saying is he is better at dirty politics, unethical politics than the opposition. And that is just so wrong. And the fact that he is almost saying it gleefully and triumphantly is nauseating to me. And he needs to go. He needs to get the hell out of the Georgia Republican Party, off the executive committee with his buddy Josh. I've had enough. What they did to Brian Pritchard and the way that they've operated. there's so many improprieties that I've been made aware of. Evidently, the treasurer did not see the FEC report that they put her name on.
Many times over a long period of time.
That's forgery. I'm sorry. It is forgery. It is illegal, and it is flagrantly dishonest. And they would not allow the treasurer, I'm told, based on reliable sources, to see the checkbook and the finances of the Georgia Republican Party, of which she has a fiduciary duty, a legal duty to know the finances inside and out. And then to put her name on a federal filing is criminal and one step away from encouraging the FBI to come in and look at the Georgia party.
Well, there's a long,
but they have an opportunity. They can resign, go on their merry way, live a nice, happy life, no problem. But if you dig your heels in and you're going to cling to power that you've achieved illegitimately, watch out. The train's coming. We're coming out.
Well, you ran for attorney general in Georgia, so I think you know what you're talking about. I just want to show a photo. This is I forget the first gentleman's name, but Brant Frost V and Debbie Dooley blocking the microphones from anyone getting to make a point of order. And a point of order is a privileged motion. If there's a line, you're supposed to be able to get to the front of the line per Robert's rules. And what they were trying to do is put an order or a point of order to have a vote on paper ballots. They had a big, massive component of the convention that wanted paper ballots instead of these clickers, which reelected Josh. So I know the Republican Party National is looking at this. I don't have much hope they're going to do anything. But what are the next steps? You're thinking about FBI. What else do you think may happen?
Well, I've gotten a lot of calls over the last 2 days since the broadcast on Saturday. You are very kind, Todd, to simulcast our broadcast every Saturday from 12 to 2, The Truth with John Gordon.
Let me just say that's on our Rumble and our Gettr, and also you can find it on CDM, Miami Independent, and Georgia Record. But go ahead.
But the broadcast that we did on Saturday pertaining to the Georgia party, Republican Party, has been retweeted. I saw one instance where 8,000 people watched it and commented. I saw no negative comments. And even the people that were the beneficiaries of these people's devilment don't deny it. And it is just so flagrantly wrong. And it is unethical before we even get to the illegality of it. And they've just gone too far. They are wielding power as if this organization belongs to them, as if they're, and they mask it as a corporation. They've relabeled it the Georgia Republican Party, Inc.
Yes.
So one option is to look at a case for abandonment. I think a strong case can be made that they have abandoned the Georgia Republican Party. That is,
there are no filings that we can find that establish the Georgia Republican Party political entity. There are for the corporation, but not for the political entity per Georgia law.
Well, and I think that qualifies as an abandonment. And so we are going to evaluate the legality and the possibility of reconvening the Georgia Republican Party as provided for by statute and electing its own set of officers and a committee and recruit people with values that will behave ethically.
Well, after they watch this, they're going to go file the paperwork for the Georgia Republican Party, which they haven't done for years. But there is also some financial issues with Josh. They're not huge transactions, but using the company credit card for gym memberships and all of this. And then you had the collapse of the Frost First Liberty building and loan, which really highlighted all of this because a lot of people lost a lot of money in that. And I don't know what happened there. We'll see. But what else do you want to get out?
All I know is I was encouraged and asked to invest in, along with the Frost, 6 or 7 years ago, and my simple answer was no. It's too good to be true.
Yeah,
I am a qualified investor. And I saw it and I said, no, thank you, Jesus, for giving me lucidity on that day.
Yes.
But you know, I know the entire Frost family, and actually they have been very nice to me. Except Brant Frost V showed his colors when he advertised on my show and gave me an advertisement to read on the air, which I did for, I think, 3 weeks consecutively, based on his commitment that the check was in the mail. And guess what? The check never arrived. And so, and they don't have a check, the canceled check, to show for it either. He sent me a picture of a check just to show you how duplicitous this young misguided man is. He sent me a picture of the check that he ostensibly had mailed. And I told him, I said, it never arrived in the mail, Brant. What's up? And so that was the last conversation I've had with him. That occurred a year or two ago. I can't remember the timing, but I knew at that point that this is a very flawed young man who is not honest. Not only does he not pay his debts, he does not honor his commitments, but then he lies about it. And it pains me to say those things. I derive no pleasure from it, but I am not going to be an enabler. I am not going to be a protector. I've experienced it firsthand. I can speak from a first person perspective on it. And then what he did in Dalton, I think, is shameful. And his boasting that, oh, I'm better at politics than they are. No, you're better at dirty politics than they are. That's not cool, man. You need to go sit, look in the mirror, and do a lot of introspection, because what you are doing is wrong. And I'm afraid the chickens have come home to roost. Now, Brant Frost IV, and on Saturday, I got them confused. I was on the 3rd and the 4th, but it's the 4th and the 5th. Father is the 4th. He and I went to high school together. I frankly don't remember Brant from high school, but he does remember me and remembers my dad, and has spoken very approvingly of my dad. And that really warmed my heart. I've had nothing but positives from Brant the IV and from Krista and from their daughter, who I encountered in the campaign when I was running for Attorney General. They were very helpful to me. They were very nice to me. They were donors. Thank you. I appreciate it. I have not forgotten that. And I wish them no ill will. I really don't. Brant V has got to, unfortunately, he needs to go to the woodshed. He needs a very tough lesson in love. I'm sorry. And I've heard some concerning things about the daughter, who I know and I like, whose name is escaping me. Katie, thank you. But unfortunately, I think she is engaged in some dirty politics as well. Y'all just need to stop it. You need to stop it. Chill out, go take a break, reflect on what you've done, and realize that what you've done has been very destructive to the Georgia Republican Party. It was also very destructive to the Georgia Republican Assembly.
Yes.
And they're creating this campaign of dissension and hostility, and it just needs to stop. Meanwhile, my concern is that we reorganize the Georgia Republican Party and get honest power brokers. There are a lot of really genuinely good people that have been sucked into this web of deception and deceit and dirty politics.
There are, and I'm hoping the scales come off their eyes, because, you know, a lot of them are older and just think that the GOP can't do anything wrong, because otherwise we'll get Stacey Abrams. Well, that's true, but we kind of have that already with what's in there now, in my opinion.
Well, if we get Stacey Abrams, they have no one but themselves to blame, because they've driven the wedge in this party. And my phone has been ringing since Saturday from people saying, what are we going to do? And we're upset, and we're tired of taking it on the chin. And Dalton, I think, was a seminal event. And it really was a reflection on just how bad these people are and what lengths they will go to cling to power. And they don't have fundamental disagreements with the other people in the grassroots. They have fundamental disagreements about who's going to control the party. And they want to control it with this little band of thieves that are going to enable Josh McCoon, who I disaffectionately refer to as Josh Buffoon. I've had personal experience with him too. And I just don't think that he operates in what's in the best interest of the party. I think he operates what's in the best interest of him and what he can do to incur favor with the little group of people that embolden him and empower him. It needs to stop. The house of cards needs to collapse. And I'm sorry, can I just share something with you? And this is who I am. And I'm not trying to say, oh, look how great or good I am. I'm really not. But it gives you a reflection of my mindset. And that's what I'm trying to convey. I founded a charity in English Avenue called the Friends of English Avenue. It was designed to rehabilitate the worst zip code in America. Worse for obesity, diabetes, homelessness, helplessness, joblessness, illiteracy, obesity. Largest concentration of HIV in the country for any one zip code. Every social ill known to man was there.
Is that in Atlanta? Where is that?
Yeah, in the shadow of the Coca-Cola building on North Avenue.
Yeah.
And in 2006, the Atlanta police entered the home of Katherine Johnston, a 92-year-old grandmother, and she thought she was being burglarized. She was guilty of nothing, suspected of nothing. The police just did shoddy police work. They lied to get their no-knock warrant. They entered this single lady's home. She had a rusted out pistol that she sat next to while watching TV, and she heard all this ruckus at her door. She thought that she was being burglarized. She reached for the gun. Just as the cops were busting through her door, she managed to fire one shot. It went into the ceiling. They filled her full of 32 rounds of ammunition and killed her. Then they planted marijuana in the basement. They got a confidential informant who thought he was being set up, put him in the back of the police car and said, this is what you're going to say. Long story made short, the whole story fell apart. They went to jail, 6 police officers, which is very hard to have happen. And we created a charity out of the despair that the neighbors and other people felt for that neighborhood. It is now rehabilitating. But my point to you is we collected over $1 million. Every single penny we collected, we published for the world to see every penny that was spent.
Yeah.
We planted 2 beautiful urban gardens, and one of our gardeners said, oh, John, take this tomato home and taste it. It is delicious.
Wow.
I said, no, I am not going to take the tomato home, but I will give the organization $1 for the tomato, and I will take it home and I will eat it.
Good for you. Yeah. What's the name of that charity?
Fiduciary duty of trust. Now, Josh McCoon, as I am told, I don't have proof positive, but I got reliable sources that I believe, has been caught red-handed paying his gym membership out of the Georgia Republican Party. That's all I need to know. If you've stolen from the party for your gym membership, what else have you done? Have we paid for your wardrobe? Have we paid for your clothing bill, your laundry bills? Have we paid for your travel and your expenses? I have no problem if he's gone out to dinner with people and had a legitimate business meeting. But I just think that we're seeing, what was that lady that was head of the Republican National Committee?
Ronna McDaniel.
Ronna McDaniel. I think we're seeing Ronna McDaniel in men's clothes. I mean, I don't know the extent of it, but I don't need to see much before I become very
Well, there were that's a good point, because at the convention there were a lot of accusations against Josh financially by the other side. There were, and Katie Frost was appointed head of the chair of the Georgia Republican Party Financial Advisory Committee the day before the convention, and then right after the convention their business collapsed. I mean, it just smells. I mean, we don't know
Well, what was her role? Was this some sort of an audit committee that was appointed?
She was appointed chairman of the Georgia GOP Financial Advisory Committee the day before the convention.
And what's that committee charged with?
I don't know. I mean, I think it is. I can't answer that question. But
given the closeness to between the Frost family and McCune, you would, if it was supposed to be the committee that was going to report on the finances of the Georgia Republican Party, I would allege that is putting the fox in charge of guarding the hen house.
Well, that's the point. It stinks. It just
the whole thing stinks, and this house of cards that they've constructed needs to be torn down. I don't have a successor in mind. I don't know who that should be. I just want to start with, I just think we need a clean start and a fresh break here. And so I'm calling on McCune, Frost, and Debbie Dooley, and people who participated in the devilment in Dalton to step down.
We want to help you with that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not a mean person. I don't have anything against those people. Quite the contrary. I cheered Debbie Dooley on in 2022 when she was going after Kemp. And, he did not come to our rescue in the 2020 election. The amount of duplicitousness that he engaged in is just astounding. Yeah. And we had people that went to the GBI with hard evidence. And then he had lunch with friends of mine the same day, or not the same day, but the same week or 2 weeks later, and said, "Oh, we've looked at all the evidence and there's nothing there." That is just not true.
No, it's just not.
Yeah. And Debbie Dooley was one of the biggest advocates for election integrity. I really am disappointed that she has decided to engage in this dirty, unethical politics, but don't have anything against any of these people.
Well, it's about controlling the power structure from before 2020, keeping that in place. I think there's foreign actors involved. You could look at the bill that was just passed in the legislature to protect China Chemical from liability. I mean, what the heck's going on there? And you know what? We did a big series last year on Fulton County and the trust issue, where there was a $2 million trust given, and 20 years later, it was still $2 million. Millions should have gone to Republican candidates in Fulton, and nothing did. But a lot went to Dominion lobbyists and other things. And
we were going to get the report of the audit after the Republican National Convention. Where's the audit report?
Well, I know all about that. We've reported on it. I think there's 9 articles on the Georgia Record. But my point is, last couple days after your broadcast and after a lot of other things that came out, our show on the Georgia show yesterday, people came to me who were involved in that and said, "Look, maybe this needs to be looked at too by the FBI."
Well,
so
I definitely think some. Look. Like I said, I derive no pleasure from this, none. But I'm not going to sit idly on the sidelines with information and become an enabler or say, "Oh, it's okay." It's not okay. It's just not okay. It is not okay to pay for your gym membership out of the Georgia Republican Party treasury. It is not okay to block people who traveled to Dalton in good faith as delegates to participate in a open process based on bylaws that are published and should have been followed. It is not okay to appoint a chairman to impose parliamentary rule and then not follow the parliamentary rule. It all is just so repugnant to me. Yeah. And just one last thing on this paper ballot versus the clickers. I totally get both sides of the argument. The clickers are efficient. Counting paper ballots take forever. Okay. Look, I barely got out of high school, but I'm smart enough to know that you can have it both ways. Have the clickers and agree that we're going to audit 10 or 20% of the ballots with paper. You do both. You click and you fill out a ballot, turn them in, There you go. Done. Or the clicker can be just like you go to the polls, get a paper ballot to verify that your vote has been tallied accordingly, and then have an audit. I mean, how many people vote? Are there?
Well, just to be clear, they had a plan to do that efficiently and effectively. The paper ballots people came ready. And by the way, they held the convention in the top of the state in Dalton. So people in South Georgia, which are typically the other side supporters, had to drive like 7 hours, spend gas money, which they didn't have, spend hotels. And that was done on purpose too, instead of putting it in Macon or somewhere in the middle of the state.
Well, I was just about to say, in the good old days, when nobody's going to know this name, but Bunny Chichester from Macon, Georgia. They had Chichester's drugstore, and Oliver Bateman, Billy Adams, the guy who ran for governor, Hal Suit, and then the dean of the Republican Party, who did he pass away recently? Is he still living in Sandy Springs? He was Rusty Paul's business partner. Oh, his name was the tip of my tongue. They ran the Georgia Republican Party. There was no party. I mean, it was 10 people that showed up in a phone booth. But actually, it was beginning to galvanize. And this was in the late 70s. The convention, it was always in Macon.
Yeah, it's middle.
Everybody could get to it. It was the only people it was convenient for was Bunny Chichester and me. And I was about 15 years old, 16 years old. But I went to the convention. I went to the convention at the Macon Coliseum, and that's when Hal Suit was running for governor. He was probably the first real candidate. He was a newsman on Channel 2 on WSB. And I've got a picture in my office with me interviewing Hal Suit on WMAZ TV, Channel 13 in Macon. I was 16 or 17 years old. So that's how long I've been doing Georgia Republican Party politics. And I love the party. I'm so proud of what we've done. I don't take any credit for it. I was chairman of the Georgia Republican Party Foundation, the money-raising element of the party in the 80s when Billy Lovett was the chairman. David Schaefer was the executive director. And Billy Lovett and I went over and asked Guy Milner to run for governor. And so I've been around the block and involved for a long time. I know what good politics looks like, and I know what dirty politics looks like. This is dirty politics. It's not the party I want to be a part of. I'm not going to be a part of it until we clean it up and get it back on the train on the rails. And it's going to take an army. It's going to take an army of really dedicated, committed people that are going to have to push back on this. But that's what needs to happen, in my view.
Totally agree, John. Anything else you want to get out? How do people follow you? How do they stay in touch with the show?
Well, you can write me at johngordontruth@gmail.com. And you can watch or you can go see all of our past episodes at johngordon.tv. And you can listen every Saturday right here on the CDM Press Network on their 13 digital platforms and their live streams on Gettr and Rumble. You can also catch our own live stream on those platforms, as well as X, Facebook, something I always forget. But anyway, it's out there on social media.
You're everywhere. You can find it for sure. John, thank you very much, man. I want to have you back.
Todd. Keep fighting. Fight. And Trump needs to weigh in. Somebody from the Trump organization needs to say, this isn't cool. They endorse McCune. They've got a role in this too. They need to help bring some accountability.
Well, it's not just them. It's Turning Point. It's a lot of other people. And you're right, but they're eerily silent, and I don't like that. And we're going to make it very uncomfortable for them.
I think they've got their hands full, is my impression. And I don't think they really are studying the Georgia Republican Party. But
they need to. 2026 is key.
Well, I'm telling you, we got to get this stuff fixed in a hurry if we're going to have a chance in 2026. But look, you guys that are doing this silly ass politics, don't blame Us, blame you. Go look in the mirror. You're to blame because you're the one who's driven a wedge into this party by playing your dirty little sophomoric games. Get the hell out of here. Go.
Agree, John. Thank you very much. We'll have you back. Take care.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like you had a stroke. You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I want to go through a few articles, and then we're going to play an interview I did with a female member of the Iranian resistance. Isn't John Gordon great? We want to have him back. But Israel attacks Yemen. They began drafting Orthodox Jews, which had not been privy to military service due to the religious exemption. That's been ended. And also the Gaza war continues, and Israel is preparing again to attack Iran. So the wars continue in the Middle East. We're going to keep up on that. We're the best coverage out there, I think, on these wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. So please check us daily. Put CDM.press in your daily scan. We're also on podcast anywhere. You can listen to us in the car on double speed. We're on YouTube that goes up afterwards because sometimes we have to edit the show. We're on X. We're on Gettr. We're everywhere. So please tell people about the show and put CDM.press in your daily scan. It's really important. Another thing I want to mention is I wrote an article this morning that President Trump, you are the one who can stop the killing, not Zelensky, not Putin, in the Ukraine war. He's been trying hard to get a peace deal. He's saying he's unhappy with both of them. Well, we're the ones funding them on the Ukraine side. We're funding them. We're providing weapons. The killing needs to end. This war is siphoning off America's strength. It's bleeding us dry. I mean, even Trump's own administration has said we're very low on weapon stores. And if something pops off with China or whatever, we're in big trouble. We have no air defense. Well, stop sending it to Ukraine. We voted for America first, not Ukraine first. So he has the power to end the war immediately by cutting off all American aid. And then Russia and Ukraine can come to some kind of peace. So that's that. let's look at another story. Trump says he's helping Ukraine a lot, and Zelensky wants German weapons. Big list of weapons that Germany wants. Check that out. That Ukraine wants from Germany. Germany is going rapid change militarily. Will they help them? We don't know. We don't know if they have the will or the money or the political power to do that. Again, something we're going to stay in front of. Also, Epstein. No Epstein files. Surprise, surprise, surprise. No Epstein files. He didn't commit suicide. This is just laughable, and Trump is enabling it. Why is that? Some people are being controlled. We don't know who and how and where. Well, we have ideas, but this is just ridiculous. Everybody knows it's a lie. So that's that. The last story I want to mention is a article I did yesterday at the Georgia Record saying the Matrix glitched and talking about what did Josh know, that is the chair of the Georgia GOP, and when did he know it about the Frost family collapse. Anyway, interesting article. You can read it there. The tide is turning in Georgia, we hope. And we're going to stay up on that. We are the source, the best source for Georgia news with the Georgia Show. Looks like we'll have a Georgia Show Wednesday night again because Bill Quinn is back with us. So we're going to a 2-day-a-week schedule, back 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays and 2 o'clock on Sundays. And I want to highlight, before we get to this interview, my book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. You can get it at historyofbooks.com. They have signed copies or anywhere books are sold. If you want to know how to take down the Iranian regime without sending your boys and girls to die in the Middle East, this is how you do it. So with that, I'm going to by the way, I wanted to give one quote or one comment from Murph, who said, John Gordon was talking about doing a risk limiting audit at the Georgia GOP convention. He said, no, you're wrong. You can't do a risk limited audit. They know where to pick the ballots for that. Machines just got to go. Stop the nonsense. If you don't educate yourself, you are the problem. I completely agree with you. That's why I told John that there was a faction at the convention that had a plan for paper ballots and to do it quickly. With that, I sat down with a female member of the Iranian resistance. I think you'll really enjoy this. She's got a lot of great points in how she got involved in what's going on in the ground in Iran. And again, don't forget my book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. It's on Kindle and all other electronic books, as well as anywhere books are sold. So here we go with this interview. I think you'll enjoy it. Wrong one. Sorry. Honored today to have with us Safora Sadidi. She is a member of the Mujahideen Khalq and is part of the Iranian resistance. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So you're in Albania, correct? Or are you in Paris at this point?
No, I'm in Paris right now.
Okay, great. So
I'm actually a member of the Women's Committee in NCRI.
Okay, I got my mistake. Thank you. There's been a lot of women involved in the MEK, in the movement, the NCRI, the entire resistance movement. Why did you get involved?
Actually, I was born in a family where many of my relatives, including my own father, both my parents, they were part of the resistance movement. But the 7 members of my family, including my own father, gave their lives for Iran's freedom. And my father was actually only 33 years old when he got executed in the 1988 massacre of 30,000 political prisoners. I was a couple of months when my father got arrested. He actually got arrested several times. So I really never had the chance to experience living with my own father like other children. But seeing the sacrifice of tens of thousands of others like my father, I actually decided to take a different path for the freedom of my country. The same path that, of course, my father chose, and also 120,000 of Iran's best people had given their lives for. And this path and this belief, or this, values have been carried on through generations after generations in Iran, and it is still continuing as you see today.
Yeah, the women are very involved. That's what struck me after spending some time with the movement in Paris and in Albania, is that the women actually lead the organization, and they're very involved in the resistance itself. Can you tell us about that, especially in the recent uprisings?
Yes, sure. Actually, as you said, it's I think it's a very good question, because sometimes people think that maybe the woman leadership is something that happened like in the recently because of the Mahsa Amini uprising, but the reality is it has a background. And what I have learned myself about the Iran's history of struggle, especially better that we have a struggle for like 120 years, and women have always been in these struggles, for equality, for against dictatorship, but precisely against this dictatorship, I can tell you that because this regime's main feature is misogyny, that's why women are at the forefront of this fight. And this movement, which has been going on for decades now, the women's movement, is from all parts of society, young women and girls, from students, teachers, schoolgirls, doctors, and many others. They have stood up and they have paid a very heavy price until now. And from the other side, Todd, I must tell you that there is an organized resistance, as you know, led by a Muslim woman, Mayam Rajavi, who leads this movement together with 1,000 women who are in the leadership role. So this actually inspired the women and the young people inside Iran to rise up against this regime and to fight for their freedom. And keeping this history in mind, we can see why in the recent uprisings, women and youth and the young people have played such an important role, especially in the 2022 uprisings, which was led by women and which lasted for months, and it was, spread across the whole country.
That was that happened after the death of Mahsa Amini. Did I pronounce her name right?
Yeah, correctly, Mahsa Amini.
Yeah. So what happened to her, by the way? She was pulled into custody and murdered in custody. Is that correct?
Yeah, indeed. She was,
Okay.
She was.
So let's move to Iran itself. What do you see happening on the ground in Iran right now?
Actually, right now, I can tell you that the situation is more volatile than it has ever been. The regime has never been so weak. And I know that there is some, some are advocating for civil disobedience, or maybe people are thinking that how the change will happen in Iran. The reality is that the clerical regime in Iran belongs to the Middle Ages. And from the start, they have responded to any call for freedom with violence and bullets. So those who promote civil disobedience are either naive or they don't want to pay the real price for freedom. Without even realizing it, they help the regime by distracting people from the real fight for freedom. But the message from the Iranian people, the resistant units, and the rebellious youth in Iran is what Thomas Jefferson said, that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure. So the situation in Iran is, as we say, there is no, it cannot be changed with appeasement nor war. There is a third option, which is change by the Iranian people and their organized resistance inside Iran. We can actually, sorry.
No worries.
It was my phone. This is how we are going to, free the country.
And so just to make that clear, you're saying that civil disobedience, where you just, sit in the streets or whatever, is not going to get the job done. You need the resistance on the ground to overthrow internally the regime. Is that what you're saying, essentially?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, the people are inside the country with their organized resistance can make change to Iran, of course.
And does the NCRI, which is the political arm of the resistance movement outside the country, does it have plans for a post-theocracy, environment in Iran?
Of course it has. Actually, Mrs. Mayam Rajavi, the president-elect of the NCRI, for 2 decades ago, she presented a 10-point plan. And this plan calls for establishing a democratic, non-nuclear republic with separation of religion and state, equality between men and women, rights for all ethnic groups, and an independent judiciary, and the abolition of the death penalty, of course. And we also want a pluralistic system that always supports peace in the Middle East. According to the NCRI, within 6 months after the fall of this regime, a constituent and legislative assembly will be formed through a free election. And once this assembly is formed, it will then write the constitution for the new republic, which will be put to vote, of course.
Well, people, a lot of analysts or talking heads say, well, we had, Libya, we had other countries in the Middle East, Iraq and others that were destabilized from a regime change, and that causes just chaos. What say you about what the resistance wants to happen in Iran to not let that happen?
That's a very good question. I must tell you that unlike many countries in the region shaped by colonial borders, Iran was never a formal colony, you can say. It has maintained unity despite having different ethnic and religious groups. There's Kurds, there is Azeris, there is Baluchis, and other ethnic groups. They have remained as a nation. So compared to the divided society, for example, in Iraq or in Syria, Iran's unity remains very strong. And so I must tell you that the real source of chaos or instability in the region is really the current regime, which has fueled conflict across the Middle East by using proxy forces and doing all this damage that we are seeing today. So when this regime is removed, there can be real peace and stability in the Middle East.
Well, that's been an issue for me. I vocally have been against, we've been through war after war after war in the United States. We're tired, our money's gone, our weapons stores are depleted. We don't want to get in another war. So, and Trump has said that. I guess the question is, what do you need from the U.S.? What do you need from the West to help take down the regime internally without foreign interference?
Very good question. Our resistance, we have repeatedly stated that we do not seek money, nor weapons or foreign troops to bring change to Iran. What we are, our people of Iran, they expect from the international community is to recognize the right of the Iranian people and the Iranian resistance to bring about regime change in Iran. And change cannot be realized by foreign intervention.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Is there anything else you want to get out to the world since I have you?
No, just thanking you for letting me be in this show. And I hope that in a free Iran, we can invite you, Todd, because I know you have been working very strongly with our movement and, my colleagues, Ali and Farzin and all of my colleagues in the NCRI. And I hope that we can see you soon. We can invite you soon to a free Iran.
Well, we support freedom here. So thank you very much for the invitation. Take care.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that. We try to educate on what's going on the ground in Iran. We don't need another war with Iran. We need to let the Iranian people do their thing. So we'll continue to state that. And I want to just highlight a couple of our sponsors. Please check out mypillow.com. Use promo code CDM. Don't go to the big box retailers. College is going to be here. The new year is going to be here before you know it. People going off as freshmen or whatever, they need things. They need towels, sheets, bedding, bathrobes, slippers, all of it. He's got over 600 products. Check it out. Spend some time on the site. Use promo code CDM at mypillow.com and get the best discounts. And also go to cdmmetals.com. If you've got assets, even inside a tax wrapper or not, use precious metals to keep the value as we enter this financial uncertainty. This is the silver round you can get with cash assets and use it for bartering or whatever. If the grid goes down, everybody should have some of that on hand. You can get it at Advisor Metals and just go to cdmmetals.com and fill out the form and they will contact you. And I promise you, you're not going to have a situation where it's a Ponzi scheme and it collapses. So we do our research on our sponsors and we're proud to recommend them and we can trust him. He's a patriot and all of his stuff checks out. And we've had great experience with Advisor Metals. So go to cdmmetals.com. If you call them direct, tell them we sent you for sure, because that's important. All right. Well, we're done for today. We'll be back tomorrow. big pack show tomorrow, as usual, 10 to noon Eastern on the SCIF, Monday through Friday. Thank you.